She let a starving man eat for free at her small restaurant in crisis. What he left on the table when he left changed her life forever. The night was heavy, the sky covered by thick clouds that poured incessant rain over the city. The sound of thunder reverberated through the deserted streets, and the raindrops pelted furiously against the windows of Sophia's small restaurant, creating a chaotic rhythm. Inside, the atmosphere was completely opposite. Despite the slow movement, the warm lights, the comforting aromas of homemade food, and the attention to every detail made the place a refuge. Sophia, with her apron already marked by the day's work, was finishing cleaning the counter. The clock on the wall read 9 p.m., and the last customer had left nearly an hour ago. She looked at the table where a small drawing made by Lucas, her youngest son, was held in place by magnets. He and Emily were at home with the neighbor, while Sophia was trying, as always, to do the impossible to balance her life between work and family. Thoughts about overdue bills and anxious suppliers began to invade her mind. The restaurant was her life, the livelihood of her children, but the past few months had been difficult. With a sigh, Sophia turned off the coffee maker, ready to close the doors. It was then she heard the bell above the door ring. A hunched figure entered, completely drenched. The man seemed to have carried the entire rain with him. He wore a worn-out coat that dripped onto the floor, and his shoes were worn. He hesitated as he approached the counter, eyes down, voice almost inaudible. "Sorry to bother you so late," he began, his voice hoarse. "I'm starving. I don't have any money right now, but—" Before he could finish, Sophia saw something in his eyes. It was exhaustion, yes, but there was also something more, a lost dignity, like someone who had been away from home for a long time. She remembered herself years ago, when she had to go door to door looking for work to support her children. "Don't worry about that," she said with a smile that concealed her own worry. "Have a seat. I'll prepare something for you." The man hesitated, but obeyed. He sat near the window, watching the rain. Meanwhile, Sophia went to the kitchen and got to work. Cooking had always been her way of connecting with people, of expressing feelings that words couldn't reach. She prepared a simple dish, but made with all the care, a hot stew accompanied by fresh bread. When she placed the plate on the table, the man looked at her with eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly, beginning to eat slowly. Sophia stayed nearby, cleaning the tables, but couldn't avoid curious glances toward the stranger. He didn't seem like just a homeless man. His gestures were polite, even refined, but there was a sadness that seemed to weigh more than the rain outside. When he finished the meal, the man stood up. "I don't know how to thank you. I promise I'll pay you back one day." Sophia smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "Don't worry about that. Sometimes we all need a little help." He nodded, and before leaving, left a small folded piece of paper on the counter. Sophia only noticed the note after locking the door. Curious, she carefully opened the paper. "Thank you for your kindness. My name is Daniel. I will return tomorrow with something that can change your life." Sophia frowned. The handwriting was impeccable, almost too formal for a man in such simple attire. The promise seemed as unlikely as the storm ceasing that night. But something in the tone of the message made her carefully tuck the paper away. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside the small restaurant, a seed of hope had been planted. The next morning dawned under a clear sky, as if the storm from the previous night had never happened. Sophia arrived at the restaurant early, with Daniel's note still on her mind. "I will return tomorrow with something that can change your life." The sentence sounded almost absurd. Who was that strange man, and what did he really mean? As she cleaned the counter and organized the ingredients in the kitchen, the doorbell rang again. When she looked, she barely recognized the man who entered. Daniel was completely transformed. Now, he was wearing an elegant, well-fitted suit, and his shoes were shining. His hair was neatly combed, and his posture, once tired, was now upright. Beside him stood three figures: a robust man with grey hair, a woman in a sophisticated dress, and another younger man with glasses and a briefcase in hand. All exuded an air of power and influence. "Good morning, Sophia," Daniel greeted her with a warm smile. She took a few seconds to respond, still surprised by the contrast between the man from the previous night and the one standing before her. "Good morning, Daniel. It's me." He gestured for the others to follow him. "I hope you don't mind, but I brought some friends to visit your restaurant." The three visitors greeted Sophia politely and settled at one of the tables near the window. Daniel turned to her. "They're eager to try your food. Could you prepare something special?" Still confused, Sophia nodded and headed to the kitchen. As she prepared the dish, her mind raced. Who were these people? And why did Daniel seem so different? Despite the questions, she focused on doing what she did best, creating something with soul. When she served the plates, the reaction was immediate. The aroma seemed to fill the room, and the three visitors exchanged approving glances even before tasting. After the first bite, their satisfied expressions became even more evident. "It's wonderful," the woman commented, leaning slightly over the table. "Simple but full of authenticity." Daniel smiled and looked at Sophia. "I told them they wouldn't find anything like this anywhere else." Sophia, still unsettled, thanked him with a nod. After finishing the meal, Daniel asked Sophia to join them. Sitting beside him, she listened attentively as he began to explain. "Sophia, I wasn't entirely honest yesterday." Daniel paused, observing her reaction. "I'm not just a man who needed help. I'm a financial consultant and work with people interested in investing in businesses with great potential." Sophia stood still. His words were hard to process. "I saw something special in you yesterday. The way you manage this restaurant, the care you put into the food and the environment, it all showed me that you're not just running a business. You're creating something that touches people." The three investors nodded in agreement. "That's why I brought these friends." Daniel gestured to the others with his hand. "They believe, like I do, that you have what it takes to grow. We want to help you expand this restaurant." Sophia felt a mix of emotions. Expansion? That was something she had dreamed of at some point, but now it seemed daunting and distant. Expand. Her voice sounded hesitant. But how would that be possible? The robust man intervened. "We have the capital to fund the opening of new restaurants, maintaining the same concept and quality you have here. With your vision and leadership, we believe this can be a great success." Sophia looked at Daniel, seeking answers. "Why me? I don't have the training for this. I can barely keep this place running." "Because you have something money can't buy, Sophia." Daniel spoke firmly. "Dedication, authenticity. These are the foundations of any truly lasting business." Sophia remained silent for a moment, feeling the weight of expectations. "But what if this changes what I've built here? The restaurant is more than a business to me. It's my home. It's my story." The woman beside her smiled understandingly. "We can ensure your essence is maintained. We don't want to change what makes this place special, but help you reach more people." Sophia took a deep breath. The idea was tempting, but it felt too big, like a leap into the dark. "I need time to think." Daniel nodded, respecting her hesitation. "Of course. This decision is yours, Sophia. But know that we're here to support you, as partners and friends." As they said their goodbyes, Sophia watched Daniel and the investors leave. She felt like she was on the brink of something monumental, yet still held back by uncertainties. As she locked up the restaurant, she held the note Daniel had left the night before. His words now carried much more weight. something that can change your life. And perhaps, she thought, she was standing before that change. After nights of reflection and intense conversations with Daniel, Sophia finally decided to take the first step toward expanding her restaurant. The plan, outlined with the help of the investors, was to open a second location in a bustling neighborhood known for its diverse clientele and vibrant nightlife. However, accepting the challenge was only the beginning. Soon, Sophia found herself immersed in a flood of decisions that required constant attention. Daniel accompanied her on several property visits. Always attentive, he asked incisive questions, helping her see details she might have overlooked. After weeks of searching, they found a space that seemed perfect, a corner with large glass windows and enough room to create a cozy atmosphere, just like the first restaurant. "This is it, Sophia," Daniel said with conviction. "This place has the potential to be even more special than the first one." Sophia, with a hesitant smile, nodded, but doubt still lingered in her mind. Would she be able to maintain the charm and intimacy of her small restaurant in a larger space? Back in her kitchen, Sophia spent nights experimenting with recipes. She wanted to include new dishes on the menu of the new restaurant without losing the homemade touch that kept her customers coming back. While Emily and Lucas did their homework at the table next door, Sophia tested flavor combinations, often asking for her children's opinions. "It's perfect, Mom," Lucas said between bites. Emily, however, seemed more distant. "Are you okay, sweetie?" Sophia asked one night, noticing her daughter's apathy. "I just feel like you don't have as much time for us anymore, Mom," Emily replied, looking down. Her daughter's words hit her like a shock. She was striving so hard to build a better future for both of them, but she was neglecting the present. It was on one of these emotionally exhausting nights that Daniel appeared, bringing not only advice, but also a listening ear. "Sophia, you're doing something incredible, but you need to remember where it all started. Your children are the soul of this journey," he said, encouraging her to delegate more responsibilities to the new staff so she could spend more time at home. With his support, Sophia adjusted her routine, finding ways to better balance work and family. Among the investors, William, the youngest and most eloquent of the group, began to show interest that went beyond the professional. With frequent compliments and unexpected visits, he tried to get closer to Sophia, always suggesting more casual dinners or conversations. "You're an inspiration, Sophia, and to be honest, I don't think I've ever met someone as fascinating as you." But Sophia, still carrying the scars of past relationships, remained firm in keeping interactions strictly professional. Daniel, noticing William's behavior, also intervened subtly, always ensuring Sophia felt she had complete control over the situation. Difficulties began to arise: construction delays, suppliers demanding advance payments, and a timeline that seemed impossible to meet. There were days when Sophia almost gave up, but Daniel, with his unshakable calm, reminded her why she was doing all of this. "It's your heart that made the first restaurant special, Sophia. Don't lose that." Finally, after months of hard work, the second restaurant was ready. On opening night, Sophia prepared every detail with the same care she always put into her food. When the first customers began to enter, she felt the same butterflies she had when she opened her first restaurant. Daniel beside her smiled. "You did it, Sophia. This is just the beginning." As the customers savored the dishes, Sophia realized that despite the challenges, she had preserved what was most important: authenticity. Watching the joy on her customers' faces and hearing Lucas and Emily's laughter in the background, she felt she was on the right path. And so, the second restaurant became not just a milestone of expansion, but also a reminder that what made everything work wasn't money or grandeur, but the love she put into every detail. The success of the second restaurant was immediate. Customers from different neighborhoods began to visit the new location, attracted by the praise circulating on social media and word-of-mouth recommendations. Sophia's name, once known only within a small circle of loyal patrons, started to appear in culinary blogs and local magazines as an example of authentic and accessible gastronomy. However, with the attention came challenges. Among those who noticed Sophia's growth was Anthony, the owner of a long-established restaurant in the same area. He had always had a solid clientele, but the novelty of Sophia's restaurant began to steal the spotlight from his business. Upset, Anthony started spreading rumors that Sophia was managing her restaurant poorly, underpaying employees, and using low-quality ingredients. The gossip began to circulate among suppliers and some older customers. Sophia realized the impact when one of her suppliers hesitated to place a new order. "I heard you've been delaying payments. I don't want to take any risks," he said with a distrustful expression. Upon learning of the rumors, Daniel suggested that they address the situation directly. "You've always been transparent and honest, Sophia. These lies can't hold up when faced with the truth." They organized a meeting with suppliers and employees, making it clear that the restaurant had always fulfilled its obligations. Daniel also used his influence to dispel the rumors within business circles. While dealing with external challenges, Sophia noticed that something was wrong at home. Emily, who used to help at the restaurant and always seemed proud of her mother's work, began to withdraw. "Mom, you're always busy. How long are you going to be here? It feels like your mind is somewhere else," Emily said one night while Sophia was trying to review accounts on her laptop. Sophia felt the weight of her daughter's words. Emily was right. Success was taking a high toll, and her presence at home was no longer the same. She tried to reach out, but Emily, hurt, remained distant. Lucas, on the other hand, was more understanding, but Sophia knew she needed to do more for both of them. The search for balance. With Daniel as her advisor, Sophia began to delegate more responsibilities at the restaurant. She hired a trusted manager to handle daily operations and decided to set fixed times to spend with her children. One evening, she arrived home earlier than usual, holding bags of fresh ingredients. "Let's make dinner together?" she asked, looking at Emily and Lucas. Surprise was written on both their faces. During dinner, while preparing a simple dish as they did before the expansion, Emily began to open her heart. "I just miss when everything was simpler, Mom. When we had more time together." Sophia hugged her daughter, tears in her eyes. "I miss it too, Lou. But I promise I'll do better." As Sophia worked to rebuild Emily's trust, Daniel continued to be her pillar of support. In a conversation at the restaurant, he shared something Sophia didn't expect. "When I started my career, Sophia, I made the same mistake. I put work above the people I loved, and it cost me more than any success could compensate for." His words deeply touched Sophia. She realized that success meant nothing if she couldn't share it with her family. Sophia decided to organize a special event at her restaurant to show that growth had not altered her values. She invited old customers, employees, and suppliers to a community dinner, where she celebrated everyone's role in building the business. At the event, she gave an emotional speech. "My restaurant has always been more than just food. It's about the connections we create, about taking care of one another. I want this to continue, regardless of how much we grow." Emily, present in the audience, smiled for the first time in weeks. With Daniel's support and the loyalty of her customers, Sophia managed to overcome the rumors spread by Anthony. The competitor, realizing his strategy had failed, ended up losing more customers than Sophia, who emerged from the situation even stronger and more determined. That night, as she closed the restaurant and walked home, Sophia felt grateful for all the adversities she had faced. Daniel was right. What truly made her restaurant special was her heart and dedication. And now she knew that these values needed to be applied in all areas of her life, including her relationship with her children. It was the beginning of a balance she had never imagined possible, but which now seemed within her reach. Sophia's growth was almost unbelievable. In just a few months, she had opened 2 more restaurants, each with its own personality, but all maintaining the essence of the first, food made with love and a welcoming atmosphere. For her, success didn't just mean financial prosperity, but an opportunity to do more for the people around her. From the beginning, Sophia knew she didn't just want to hire experienced professionals. She wanted to give chances to those who needed a fresh start. Inspired by her own story, she began opening doors for people in vulnerable situations. That's how Anna joined the team. A woman in her 50s, marked by a difficult divorce that left her with nothing. During the interview, Anna could hardly hold back her tears as she admitted she never imagined someone would give her an opportunity. Another example was Peter, a young man who had gone through a long rehabilitation period. Working in the kitchen connected him to childhood memories of helping his grandmother prepare simple meals. Gradually, he regained not only his love for cooking, but also control over his life. Over time, Sophia's restaurants became more than just places to eat. They were spaces where stories of overcoming adversity flourished. Each location had its own spirit, shaped by the experiences of its employees. Photos began to decorate the walls, capturing special moments. Anna in her uniform for the first time, Peter smiling as he served the first dish he created. The clientele seemed to feel the soul of these spaces, returning not just for the food, but for the emotional connections they found there. As Sophia closely observed this impact, Daniel continued by her side. He made frequent visits to the restaurants, always with words of encouragement and valuable advice. One afternoon, while they were watching the activity at the 3rd restaurant together, Sophia finally asked a question she had been holding on to for some time. "Daniel, why do you do this? You could invest in any big business, but you chose to help someone like me who didn't even know where to start." Daniel remained silent for a few seconds, as if considering the best way to respond. "Because I see something special here," he said finally. "Something that money can't buy." He paused, looking at the bustling restaurant, before continuing. "I never told you this, but my life wasn't always the way it is today. Before I became who I am, there was a time when I also needed compassion. I went hungry, knocked on doors that never opened, until one day a woman like you gave me a meal. No questions, no judgment, just kindness." Daniel's words deeply touched Sophia. She couldn't imagine that strong and confident man going through something so difficult. "That changed everything," he continued. "Years later, when I finally managed to get back on my feet, I promised myself that if I had the means, I would do the same for others. When I walked into your restaurant that rainy night, I wasn't just looking for a meal. I was looking for someone who reminded me of that woman. And I found you." Sophia couldn't hold back her tears. Everything made sense now. Daniel wasn't just an investor or advisor. He was someone who understood on a deep level what it meant to struggle to survive. As more restaurants were opened, Sophia began to realize that her work went beyond serving good food. She was creating a cycle of kindness. The impact of her actions was spreading throughout the community. Letters began to arrive, written by families who had been touched in some way by the jobs and opportunities Sophia provided. Some thanked her for the work that allowed for fresh starts, others for the example of solidarity and courage. Despite all the recognition, Sophia remained humble. Whenever she could, she visited her first restaurant, sat at the counter, and watched the customers, just as she did before everything began. One of those nights, Daniel joined her, sitting beside her. "Did you ever imagine all of this would be possible?" he asked with a smile. Sophia looked around, remembering every step of her journey, and shook her head. No. But I think that's what makes it all so special. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Daniel agreed thoughtfully. The best things in life happen that way. Sophia knew he was right. More than a business, she had built something that touched lives, and that was more valuable than any financial success. As she prepared to open her fourth restaurant, Sophia reflected on how it all started. A simple act of kindness, a meal offered without expecting anything in return, had triggered a domino effect that transformed lives. It was proof that sometimes the simplest gestures can have the greatest impacts, and for her, that was the true reward. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air of the small makeshift office in the original restaurant. Sophia sat before a pile of papers, but her mind wandered through the memories of the past years. From a simple restaurant, she now managed 5 locations, each carrying the essence of her hard work and her story. Despite the frenetic pace of her new routine, Sophia never stopped reserving moments to reflect. It was a quiet morning when she, alone with her thoughts, realized something she had been ignoring. It all started with an act of compassion. The meal she offered Daniel that rainy night transformed her life in ways she never could have imagined. Inspired by this thought, Sophia decided to create something special, something that would reflect the kindness she had received and that had now become part of her identity. She called her trusted team to discuss an idea. A community program that would offer free meals to those in need and professional training for those who wanted to learn how to work in the kitchen or the dining area. "I want to give back to the world what I received," she said, as she explained the idea. "If each restaurant offers at least 1 free meal a day, we'll already be making a difference." The team responded enthusiastically, and within weeks, the program was up and running. Sophia named it Open Table, a gesture that symbolized the welcoming and generosity that had always defined her restaurants. The first participants in the program were greeted with smiles and outstretched hands. Anna, who now managed one of the restaurants, helped teach new employees, sharing her own story of overcoming adversity as inspiration. Peter, promoted to head chef, began training young people who had never held a professional knife before, but who now had a new chance. Meanwhile, Daniel remained present, but his demeanor was different. He watched Sophia with a satisfied look, like someone who sees a plan fully come to fruition. On a sunny afternoon, as they walked together through the restaurant, Sophia noticed that something was different about him. "What's up, Daniel?" she asked, noticing the nostalgic gleam in his eyes. He smiled. "Nothing. Just pride. Seeing where you've come, it's more than I could have imagined." Sophia laughed. "I couldn't have done it without you." Daniel shook his head. "I could have. I just sped things up. You already had everything you needed here," he said, pointing to her heart. Those words stayed with Sophia for days. She knew Daniel was preparing a farewell, and when the moment came, it was less painful than she had imagined. In a final meeting at the original restaurant, Daniel explained his decision. "It's time for me to step away, Sophia. I've always looked for someone with heart and dedication to invest in, and now I know I've chosen the right person. You don't need me anymore." She tried to protest, but he interrupted her with a smile. "This isn't goodbye. Just a new chapter. What you started here already has its own strength, and I know you'll continue this cycle of kindness." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she hugged him. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Always believe, Sophia. It's your heart that transforms everything. Days passed, and although she missed Daniel, Sophia found comfort in the lessons he left behind. Her restaurants continued to grow, but what moved her most were the stories emerging from each location. Lives transformed, families rebuilt, hopes renewed. On a quiet afternoon, while her children played in the garden of the original restaurant, Sophia watched them with a serene smile. Emily and Lucas, now older, were the reason for everything. "It was all worth it, wasn't it?" she murmured to herself, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Her children's laughter and the sound of pots in the kitchen in the background were a reminder that the legacy she had created wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who crossed her path and who would continue to propagate the same spirit of compassion. As the sun began to set, tinting the sky orange and gold, Sophia felt that her work was just beginning. The cycle of kindness that started with a plate of food would continue to grow, transforming lives in ways she could not yet imagine. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought about the story. See you in the next video.